quality trained security officers and virtual officers.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Titan Training Room. I'm here with lead instructor Todd Sparks. We're going to talk about handcuffing today. Please know going into this instructional video, we are not talking about an active cuff or where a subject's trying to defeat the cuff. We are talking about when one of our officers has a person's crime where we're going to need to hold on to that subject if needed for a police response. If that subject at any time while we're discussing this takes off running, we're going to be a good witness for the police. We're going to gather as much information and details as we can, and we are going to just provide that all to police so they can take that to further the case. But as of right here today, we're mostly going to be talking about the functionality of a handcuffs and how to apply them. Before we get started here and talking about grip and talking about approach and what we're looking for here as far as applying cuffs, these are the standard cuffs that we're going to use in our training room and our officers are going to use on the street. You have your hinge cuffs, which some people are not a fan of due to the ability to break those. That's been done in the past. Then you have your your regular chain cuffs that a lot of folks traditionally like to use. And then my favorite, the asp cuffs. You're going to see these keyholes on all of these cuffs. The asp cuffs are nice because they're on both sides of the cuff. It makes things easier so you don't get your cuffs on wrong. And then obviously you have your single bars and double bars which operate the cuff. Let me talk a little bit about that. When we are talking about the cuffs themselves, you'll see that the single bars is what goes on our subject. That's what moves, okay? If you try to put these double cuffs, the double bars on somebody, that's not gonna move, okay? You're going to harm somebody's wrist, and we don't want that. That's gonna lead to a lawsuit and all kinds of liability problems. So for some easy points of reference, single bars go on the bad guy, double bars do not. And we're always looking for those keyholes, which here in our training room, we nickname the eyeballs. Also present here, we have two different kinds of keys. These are the standard ones that would come with a pair of cuffs when you buy them. Normally it'll come with two of them. But this is what we like using and what most officers like using because it's a little easier to manipulate and gives you a better grip on the key, whereas you can see how small this one, and you're pinching at the key. And whereas this one, you got a nice grip with your hand. As you guys can see right here, I have Instructor Sparks set up in a cuffing position. Again, like we started with the video, we are not talking about an active cuff. We are talking about somebody who's being compliant, and we know we need to hang on him for the police because this has been a person's crime, not a property crime, a crime against a human being or ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and have them verbally set up. Remember, at any time, if my suspect decides to flee, that is okay. We are security officers, and we do not need to fight to keep them in custody. This is what we are looking for, a compliant cuff that we're going to hang on to the subject for the police. You're going to see in the next few moments here of me applying the handcuffs, showing your grip. We're going to do it both with the chain and with the hinges. But again, if I'm in my reactionary gap, I'm a few feet away from Todd, and he decides to break and run, I'm going to let him run. I'm going to be a good witness for the police. So starting out here with our hinge cuffs, I'm going to use those first. If you set your grip up right, you have a really, really high level for success, or you're going to be successful here. And this is why the eyeball slang comes in. If you look at my keyholes right there, if you can see the keyholes right there, what I always tell my guys is blindfold the eyeballs. And so right here, my hand comes over, and as you'll see, remember I said single bars on the bad guy, double bars do not. So if I'm going to apply cuffs, I want those single bars going towards the bad guy. And if you actually look at the handcuffs and you look at Todd's position, they will actually set up for you. And you can see how a single bar will go here and a single bar will go here. And then when I take the blindfold off, being my palm, the eyeballs will be looking at my eyeballs. So whether Todd is showing me an open hand approach right here, he could go ahead and yeah, he can grasp his hands, he can tangle his fingers up, he can do all kinds of things like that. Does not matter. It's not going to change my approach. I'm going to move in and get this set up the way that I want it to look. And the way that I do that is I'm first going to peel him out right here, and I'm going to peel away from his body. Okay, I'm steadying myself right here. And at any moment, again, if he takes off running, then he took off running. We'll be a good witness and we'll gather the information. But from right here, again, my single bar that you can see, I'm simply going to stop right here. It's almost like volleyball. You set and then you spike. okay? It's not slamming down on the wrist. That's going to cause an injury, and that's not what we're looking for. We are looking to set and then spike, just like in volleyball. From there, if you guys can see it, there's an actual handshake. So then you take the handshake right here, and again, I want to make sure that we're pointing this out. I set, and then I spike. And that's what connects the cuffs. If you'll also notice, when you have somebody with shoulder structure like this and muscle mass back here, you want to work low. As you work high, look at how it separates his hands right there, and it's going to make it harder and harder and harder to get him in cuffs, and you've got a higher potential for injury to his shoulders, to his rotator cuff, things like that. If you work low, you're going to be in much better shape. And again, with the muscle structure, if you have somebody who's bowed up a little bit, shake them out a little bit right here, and it will relax that muscle right here, and it makes it easier to apply the cuff. Checking for fit and double lock, an extremely important task that we got to get done. The way I have always done this is I'm going to tuck a pinky in here, and if it's nice and snug, then I'm okay. He's got some breathing room in there, and I'm not going to cause a wrist injury. I'm going to check that all the way around and make sure I can get my pinky all the way around in there. I'm going to do the same on the other side. On these cuffs, and cuffs do vary on this, if we tuck in real tight here, you can see the double locks that are right here. It's a little button right there. There's also one right there. And the way you double lock is you absolutely just take the rear of your handcuff key, push in, and now that button is pressed, and now the cuffs are locked in place. Meaning, if I press on this, it's not going to hurt and tighten up on Todd's wrist. When we are talking about taking the cuffs off, there's several things that we want to keep in mind to keep us from getting injured, to keep our subject from being injured or anything like that. Number one, this is tough because there's no light in here, and so one of the things is very gently that I always tell our officers to do, simply raise them up a little bit and get your workspace where you have a nice little flat desk right here. That makes it easy, okay? The other thing I'm going to do is when I go to unhook him here, I've got my eyeballs looking up at me because I put my grip in right. I'm going to turn all the way one way and all the way back the other direction, and you'll actually see it spring. See it just sprung them out right there? I'm going to pull the key out. I'm obviously going to go ahead and close those teeth right there so I'm not presenting him an edged weapon to swing away from me. I'm going to close those up, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing right here with this one. Todd, would you go ahead and put your hand on top of your head for me? I'm doing that so I can kind of keep an eye on that hand, and I'm doing the exact same thing on this side, and he's free to go. So we saw that technique with the hinge cuffs. We're going to talk about chains here. Everything is the same except you have to compensate for that looseness in the chain right here, okay? A lot of folks will just start with this front cuff right here and leave this guy swinging around. I've never liked that, so I kind of changed it myself, and what I did is I actually take the slack out of the chain. I start with my grip down here with these two fingers, and I just hook them together and make the hinge. Now my hand is the actual hinge of the cuff instead of relying on the chain. From there, exact same scenario. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make contact with his hand, and again, we're using the set spike. We're not slamming down here to injure somebody. I set and I spike, okay? Here's my handshake. Good to meet you. I set and I spike, all right? We will obviously go through our checking for fit and double lock, the same on this. These cuffs are the same as the hinges. They have the little buttons right here on the outside. There are some cuffs that are going to have a little crash bar right here where you're going to put the back of the handcuff key and you're going to press the bar to one side or the other, and that's what's going to double lock those cuffs. Remember to be careful when you're going to check your double lock right here. When you squeeze in on this thing, make sure you got it right, because otherwise you're going to tighten up the cuff on your subject. I want to thank Instructor Sparks for being with us down here for our training video. Again, I want to point out this is not all the aspects of our training module. There is a recovery position, there's how to get somebody up who's been handcuffed, there's frisking, there is, checking for all kinds of things, and there's different positions. This was just a little breakdown of our cuffing style and technique. There are tons out there. We highly encourage you guys to seek out whatever training you feel works the best for you or works the best for your company. This is the technique that we've really liked here at Titan. Please remember, there's a lot more that goes into this, and this is not addressing an active resistance in cuffing. Thank you for joining us in the Titan Training Room. You guys be safe out there.